Welcome back to Dream to Evolve. Today we have a truly dynamic and multi-talented guest whose career is a testament to following your passions and evolving through every step of life. Now Melvin is making waves in film and television, working with some of the biggest names in the industry, including Showtime, Amazon, Apple TV, Universal, Netflix, and Warner Brothers Discovery. He's also brought his own creative vision to life with his independent film project, Baldy, a testament to his skills as a filmmaker and a storyteller. From coaching to creating, Melvin has mastered the art of reinvention, and I can't wait to dive into his incredible story and the lessons he's learned along the way. Melvin, welcome to the show. Melvin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great. Welcome to Dream to Evolve. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So let's dive into it.
Oh boy, let's do it.
Think back to when you were getting ready to enter Knox College as a freshman.
Okay.
If someone had asked you, where do you see yourself in 15 years? What do you think your response would have been?
My response, where do you see yourself in 15 years? Probably would have been, I'm either a sports psychologist for the Chicago Bulls or Los Angeles Lakers, or I'm a sports journalist on ESPN somewhere.
Okay.
Those would have been my, for sure, two answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you ended up studying education and journalism while you were in school.
Correct.
Tell us about your path. How did you end up navigating studying education and journalism? What was your ultimate goal?
Well, my ultimate goal at the time, I was like, all right, I'm gonna be a professional athlete, and I am not. My little brother is, so somebody in the family did it. But I was like, if I'm not gonna do that, then I'll either be on TV talking about sports or I'll be a psychologist. So I was like, great, let me figure this out. So I go and take a Psych 101, and after the first 4 classes, I'm like, nah, this ain't gonna be it. I got to figure out how to get out of this. And at the time at Knox, you could only do a print journalism minor. Excuse me. You could only do a print journalism minor. There was no broadcast minor nor major. I kind of had to create it, or I had to go to a different school. And a lot of people at the time were like, you should probably go to a different school. This is really what you want to do. But at the time, I was also playing sports, and that was before my dreams of being professional died. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out here. I'm going to do the print journalism minor, and see what my major is going to be. As we got closer to time being able to decide, my father, who is a special education teacher, had a heavy influence on being like, well, listen, until you figure something out, all this money that you're paying to go to school, you might need to major in education just so we can figure some things out. And I was like trying to see where I should go instead. And for a brief moment, I thought about creative writing, which would have been helpful for everything I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. But ultimately decided on education. It was something that I was already well versed in from watching him teach my whole life, and also from like coaching little kids, and from like over the summer. I would go and like teach in different programs or coach in different programs. So it was like, it's kind of like a shoe-in for me to be able to do it. And it also helped me to learn a lot about people as well, because I can go back and see, or at least in my head, I would think like, what were you like as a child, and how did that, manifest to who you are right now? Like, what were your strengths and weaknesses? And, I really enjoyed doing it after the first couple classes. And I was like, you know what? Education major. Let's roll with it and see what happens. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of how all that happened.
So you're in school and you have a sense of what you're interested in. You're interested in sports. You're interested in journalism, creative writing. Mm-hmm. With all of that in mind, but also having to navigate paying for college.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about scholarships or financial support. Did you have that benefit in college, or were you juggling both figuring out your major and what your career path would be, and how to figure out how to pay for college?
It was a little bit of the latter. Granted, I didn't have to think about it too much, but there were definitely a lot of moments where I did. I know my parents held me down as best as they could. But then there was times where it was like, all right, we got to go holler at them loans and see what those are about. And then Pell Grant, I would get that and be like, oh, I got a little bit of money that would then go right towards whatever bill that I had to pay at that point in time, as well as getting a off-campus job, being able to use that to pay some of it down. And then even when I wasn't working at off-campus job, I had a off-campus internship as well. It was more like an online internship working for a PR agency at the time, and just kind of juggling all of those on top of still playing basketball, still running track, and it was just a lot at once. And it kind of fueled me always doing more than what I needed to do, because at the time I was like, no, I need to do this to, satisfy my creative itches, as well as I got to find payment to be able to stay here.
Yeah.
So doing all those things kind of together was just like a whirlwind and a perfect storm for me to figure out, okay, these are some of the ways that I'll be able to pay for school and still be able to satisfy some of the personal needs that I have. And yeah, once I stopped playing sports, that kind of transitioned into writing for the school newspaper, but also doing broadcasting for school. I would like color commentate the basketball games, the football games, some of the soccer matches, and PA announce some of the baseball games. And I also found out I can get paid from doing that too. So I was like, oh, well, great. Another way to keep it going.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So it sounds like you were very busy, especially, just trying to navigate sports, navigating, earning an extra income to support yourself in college. Tell me a little bit about personal development, especially when it came down to preparing yourself for internships or for fellowship programs. Mm-hmm. How did you prepare for those, and was mentorship a part of any of that preparation for you?
I would say I was preparing for that just by I was probably the person that was always too serious and always too professional. Like, looking back on it, I probably should have had a little bit more fun, but I was always trying to take advantage of every opportunity, or every time I would meet with a professor, like, I need to dress up, I need to do this, I need to ask these questions, I need to be prepared in case these things are asked of me. I would say some of my professors, say for example, John Haslam, who was a tutor at the time, a professor, but also a tutor at the time for students that needed it, was instrumental in being a mentor for me, and just being like, hey, like, you can do all of this and have fun and still be able to figure out how to make it all work. As well as another mentor I had in Tiana Cervantes, who was also a staff member at the school as well. Without their guidance, as well as some of the older students that were there that I would like hang around with, and them kind of be like, hey, like, it's gonna be okay, because I was nothing but a nervous Nelly at times too, just trying to like, how am I gonna do all this? How am I gonna figure it all out?
Yeah.
And burning both ends of the candle. I'm very grateful that I did have them, because at the times when they were like, you need to sleep, I would listen. But when I also needed that push, and like, I know I could get myself there, but just kind of talking it through with somebody too, they were very instrumental in doing so. And had I not had them, I'm not sure that things would have gone the way in which they did. Or even, for example, when IRTS came about, I remember, obsessing about it with John in his office, and like, I could see him right now just sitting at his desk, leaning back, just listening to me talking, me just pacing back and forth in his office, talking about, I need to do this, I need to get this together and this together, and then I need to. So it was good that I had all of that to help put it together.
And for those of you who don't know what IRTS is, Melvin and I were both a part of a fellowship program hosted by the International Radio and Television Society.
Woo-woo.
It's a 9-week, all expense paid opportunity right here in New York City, where you get to intern with some of the top advertising and media companies in our industry. So it's a fabulous way to set yourself up for a career in media. Yeah. But that's just, a little brief tidbit about IRTS. So what I'm gathering is you were very busy in college. You had a lot going on, but fortunately you had some mentors to kind of help guide you and shape your path. So when we look at your professional career,
Yeah.
being the multi-hyphenate person that you are, can you walk us through that journey? So you make it to New York through the IRTS fellowship program. You start a career in advertising. Walk me through how you went from that space to becoming a filmmaker.
Man, before I even made it to New York, after the internship program, I was doing my best to try and stay in New York. It was like whatever job I can find, if I need to sweep floors, whatever I can do to stay in New York, I'm gonna try and do it. Couldn't find that.
Yes.
So ended up going back to Chicago, and I was working in advertising sales at the time. And I remember having a conversation with a pretty well-known journalist in the sports field, and just trying to figure out, hey, like, trying to figure out where my life should go. I just kind of want to talk to you a little bit about it. And I remember him telling me, well, like, in order to really do this, you got to hit the grind. So, there's a job out in Wyoming covering sports. If you want to go out there, I could put you in touch with somebody.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there, like, on the phone with him, and him waiting for an answer for me, me just being like, I'm not going to Wyoming, bro. Like, that's not happening. So at that point, I was like, all right, I need to figure out my own way to do this. Mm-hmm. So during the day, work my ad sales job, and then at night, I was taking classes at Illinois Media School to learn video and audio production. And as I was doing that, that led to some opportunities to do some radio and a little bit of TV and some small broadcasting in Chicago. So I kind of felt like I had the best of both. But every time something would come up in New York, whether it was IRTS or if I just felt like, all right, I haven't been to New York in a minute, let me figure it out, I would take a day off of work. I would fly to New York.
Wow.
I would get in at like 9 a.m. and then I would make the rounds to go see everybody that had, even if you got 20 minutes, like I'm gonna make time to come see you.
Yes.
And if there was an event that night, go to the event, and then see if anybody wanted to hang out later, to be like, no, like, let's hang out as late as we could, mostly because I'm taking the 6 a.m. flight to go back to Chicago. So I'm like, I need to stay up as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And then when everybody's like, all right, bro, it's time to go, see y'all, I'm like, man, it's midnight, 1 a.m. So I'm just like hanging around, walking around Times Square, like manifesting, and then going back to old LaGuardia Airport, not this new LaGuardia Airport.
Not the nice, pretty one.
Yeah, no. This is the old one. And going back and being like, all right, let me take a nap here, and then getting on the first flight back to Chicago, and then getting to work early, showering, changing, doing all of that, and then working a full day. And it was just moments like that was like, whatever I got to do to get back is what I'm going to do. But that also just showed me more of my dedication to, like, if I have something that I want to do, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it. So, an opportunity came up for me to be able to come back to New York. And I was so grateful that it occurred, and it got me back here, but it got me into advertising sales again. And I was like, look, if that's what's going to get me here, that's what's going to get me here. And at the time I was like, I could probably still do this, like, advertising life. Let's figure out where this goes. Maybe eventually slide over to the creative side on like the Madman Don Draper kind of thing, and see what happens. And as I really got into the work, I was like, oh, this is not what I think it's going to be. And even one of my bosses pulled me aside and was like, if you think that this is going to be like how it is on Mad Men, you're about 20 years too late.
Oh,
like
wow.
all that is over with. So you got to figure out what's happening now. Otherwise, this ain't going to be for you. And that felt like another time where I was like, I don't know if this is going to be for me to end. Like, I gotta see what I can do.
And that's important. And that's also navigating the earlier stages of your career. Mm-hmm. So navigating college, and then also still learning after you've already graduated from Knox College. You've already got some internship and work experience under your belt. Mm-hmm. You finally make it to New York.
Finally made it. Yeah.
And you realize advertising sales isn't for you. You definitely want something that's a bit more creative or more aligned with the types of projects that you want to be a part of and things that you want to create. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us a little bit about that pivot? What were some of the sacrifices that you had to make as you were pivoting from advertising into production?
Yeah, that's great that you asked that question, because that's exactly where I'm going. Like, that period of, I don't want to do this, but I'm not yet there to do everything that I want to do, was just a big cluster, because It was like, how do I fill that gap? And in that time period, I was like, okay. Spoke to a friend of mine. She got me into sketch and improv. So started taking classes and doing shows at UCB and the Magnet Theater. How I was taking classes at Illinois Media School, or at the time Illinois Center for Broadcasting, to learn audio and video production, and also being able to use their equipment. I ended up doing the same thing here at the public access station, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And when I wasn't doing those things, when I would leave from work, CBS at the time had a podcast station, called Play.it. And I had a friend there. I would go and produce his podcast. So it was like just trying to, okay, if I need to set the foundation, let's see where these chips start to add up and see where I can go with things. At a certain point, I got let go from CBS because they were doing like massive layoffs. And when that happened, it was a very sobering realization of like, I need to figure this out like now. So really over that like 2-week time period, it was putting together like, what can I do to get advertising for my radio show? Let me get my resume together and send that to all these production companies, production houses, or looking at, online digital networks in general, podcast shows, to see where I can best utilize my skill set. And that's where I ended up getting some bites from, because I had done some of the audio and video production back in Illinois and here on the weekends, and with the podcast studio, and what I was doing with my own online audience. All of that kind of led to me being able to produce on some live streaming networks, which were keeping me afloat at the time, to be able to say, okay, I can stretch this thin and figure this out during this time period.
Sorry, speaking of time.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest challenges that a lot of students face is they often feel like they don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Because the 4 years go by, 4+ years go by so quickly, and immediately they're launched into their adult life, where they're expected to have a job, they're expected to, buy the car, buy the house, or, maybe not this generation now, but time is definitely something that causes major anxiety for a lot of students.
Yeah.
So how would you advise or encourage students who have that fear about running out of time?
I would say don't subscribe to it. Don't really listen to it. Like, you have more time than you think you do. Like, I was 22, 23, 24 thinking, if I don't have this figured out by like 26, 27, 28, like, what is my life? And so much of life happens between 27, 28 and 32, where I am now, where it's ridiculous. And because I wasn't thinking that far and just trying to focus on within these couple periods of time, like within these 2-3 years, I need to have this figured out, I was putting so much of an unnecessary amount of pressure on myself. And you just got to look at it like, even some of our bosses, some of our parents, some of our grandparents, they people just like us, just trying to figure this out. Nobody has this all figured out. But unless you have somebody that's going to pull you aside and really tell you that, somebody that's going to tell you their mistakes, not just show you, these are all the great things I did, this is the big house I got, this is the big nice car I got, this is the beautiful family I got. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, at one point in time I was broke, struggling, and homeless, or like working here, or I was like working my regular job, then going to do UPS and then doing that for like, nobody tells those stories. So I think that the more willing people are to share those sides of themselves, the less pressure it's going to put on everybody else to have everything figured out right away. And I also don't think it's a bad thing to, for students that are out there, to ask people like, what were some of the real struggles that you don't talk about that you went through, for whoever that is. Maybe that's somebody that's a mentor, or somebody that you may just look up to, or somebody that you have an interest in, because that's really going to show you what life is actually like, and show you that you do have time. Because, say for example, Ava DuVernay didn't start directing until she was 32, 33. Right. All before then, she was doing PR and everything else, where had she not talked about I was doing PR or anything, you might just thought she woke up one day at 32 and was like, I'm going to just start directing. Whereas she used all those contacts that she had in the PR world to kind of start getting closer to, this is what I want to do. I want to go into storytelling, starting out small and then building from there. So,
and I think that's a great point, because that is evolution, everything working together and helping you to establish those building blocks to get you to the next level, to get you to that next chapter of your evolution and your story. So 100%. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Looking back, what is something that you're most proud of?
Oh, man. Something I'm most proud of is honestly just giving myself the opportunities to fail and being okay with what the result was. Like, there were still times where I was like hard on myself for failing for sure, but just being like, you know what, it's okay. This is just one step closer to where I'm supposed to be. Say, for example, when I was the day that I was relieved of my duties from the broadcast streaming network was also the day I had left early to go get a camera. I had spent like 2 months of my salary at that time to get me like a really expensive Canon camera, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna start filming my own stuff. I don't have to go to the public access station to use the equipment. I'm gonna get my own. And I remember telling my bosses, hey, I'm gonna go get this. Like, I have to get it, and then I'm coming right back to work. And as the camera's like coming up, the guy's bringing it, I'm literally at the door like, all right, like, let me get this and go back to work. I get the call where they're like, hey, you don't need to come back. Like, we got to do holiday layoffs. And I'm like, bro, Christmas is like in 5 days.
Wow.
Are you serious? And I remember calling my dad right after that, being like, I gotta sell this camera to be able to stay here. Like, what am I gonna do? And he was like, no, like, you saved up to get that camera. You know that you need this for all the stuff you're gonna record, all the stuff you're gonna do. Like, figure it out. Like, do not get rid of that camera. Just see if you can figure this out first, and then if, you know, worst comes to worst, we'll creatively figure things out. But right now, like, just let your mind go with what you need to do and get that done. And I'm grateful that was the case, because I used that camera to film some of the stuff that went on my acting reel, to film things that went on my radio show, which ended up on public access TV, which other people reached out to me for, which eventually led to jobs. It helped to spark my YouTube channel, which, you know, at the time only maybe had like 10 subscribers, but right now I'm getting back into it. But right now I have 17,000. So without doing all of that and really just being like, hey, you know what, it's okay, let's figure this out, I wouldn't be where I am now, because that's where all those things led to. So if I was too hard on myself and was like, you know what, this ain't gonna work, let me just get a job, sell this camera back, and figure things out, who knows where I'd be right now. Yes. But allowing myself to say, this isn't the end of the road, let's see what we can do here, we can get through this, really helped me to break through and get to where I am now.
And sometimes we need that extra push, because many people stay in a place that is not fulfilling, because they are enjoying the comfort of that space. But Absolutely. It's really not comfort. What we learn is, and what I'm sure you experienced is, you know, that chapter was more uncomfortable than ever, because you weren't really walking in your passion.
Yeah.
And so for Fab Scholars, how would you, or what would you suggest we can do to help support students as they're navigating some of these challenges or moments in their life where they have this big question mark about what's next? I'm running out of time. I have a passion. I'm studying one thing and being pushed in this direction, but I really want to go someplace else. How would you advise organizations like ours to support students?
I would say, while, you know, knowing when to give people that push of like, hey, I think you can do a little bit more, there's also that realism of, can you, as the student, as the person, live with the choices that you make? So if you're going to, hey, look, I'm going to just name a random place. I'm going to leave Boise, Idaho, and just go to New York on a whim, right? Okay. Have you looked up anything job-wise? Have you like found a place to stay? This isn't just I'm going to sell everything I got, and I got like $3,000 to my pocket, and I'm going to figure it out. Like, yeah, there are some instances where that works out, but there's a lot more behind the scenes than what you may know for some of the people that do have those things together. Like, there's a fine line of, hey, like, I think that there's more here that you can do while you have time, versus we need to be a little more realistic and say this isn't the end of the road, but this is a blockade right now that we do need to creatively figure out how to get around. And it goes back to sharing some of those mistakes and just saying, hey, these are things that I did where I thought I wanted to go this way, but I ended up going this way and things worked out for the better. So sometimes having that door closed in your face or not getting that opportunity isn't the worst thing in the world, because it's going to creatively fuel you in whatever other direction that you go in. So I think that would be the thing, just to realize when it's like, hey, this isn't it's over with, it's just a not right now, but let's figure out what you can do during this time period to see where you can build, grow, and get better.
And that's amazing. I love that piece of advice. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
And thank you for being a part of the show. It's been amazing hearing your story and hearing your journey about how you navigated through college, navigated your early career, and pivoting out of that into something that you're truly passionate about. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And please go see Baldy the film when it is out.
Check out Baldy when it comes out. Follow Melvin to stay updated on the release.
Yo, it's Trav Day. Get up, let's go.
And Travis, I'm bringing Sydney.
Happy birthday, Trav. See you tonight.
Look good and don't mess this up.
My barber full. Can you send me?
All right, I'll send you his number.
Midtown, bro, that's far.
Not further than your lineup.
You sit on you right here today. You're gonna be blazing in hip hop and R&B.
It can't be me, right? Like, no. This is how I've always seen myself. I'm losing that reality. Who am I?
Life is giving you a chance to redefine yourself. Take note.